Millions of Americans are not satisfied with what we've been told, and we shouldn't be, because it's been contradictory and insulting to our intelligence every step of the way. We can't drop it. We can't move on, because what we want is justice. When you go offline for any significant period of time, what I didn't expect was to come back and feel like someone who had been in a coma for the past 5 years, only to awaken and realize that the world is apparently a very, very different place than I thought it was and than I remember it being. I didn't expect that some of the most basic facts that we all took for granted, things that no serious person would dispute, would suddenly become the stuff of quote-unquote conspiracy theories, all in the span of just 14 days or so. But indeed, more or less, that's what happened. As I returned from vacation the other day, quite unexpectedly, I learned that Jeffrey Epstein was not, in fact, an international sex trafficker, even though he was arrested for being one and his closest associate was convicted for trafficking children. I also learned that there is no Jeffrey Epstein client list, even though the Attorney General said she had one on her desk. Additionally, I discovered that Jeffrey Epstein did indeed kill himself, even though the video supposedly proving this point was edited multiple times and omits an entire minute for no apparent reason. And furthermore, I learned that no prominent or powerful people were implicated in Jeffrey Epstein's underage trafficking operation in any way, even though dozens of them flew on his plane to his creepy sex island. And on top of that, I was informed that the whole issue doesn't matter and that it's weird to care about any of this, and we should all just move on and discuss far more important topics, even though literally all of the people now saying that it doesn't matter, all agreed that it did matter as recently as 2 weeks ago. Now, this is the kind of inexplicable and shameless pivot that the left historically specializes in service of their ideology without even a hint of hesitation. Leftists will eagerly denounce the very same facts and ideas that they were parroting just 5 seconds earlier, and they see no problem with it. They'll tell you, for example, my body, my choice, and then turn around and destroy your life if you don't get an experimental shot. They'll tell you Russia isn't a threat and that Mitt Romney needs to stop being so paranoid about Putin. Then the moment Donald Trump wins an election, they'll insist that hackers in the Kremlin are capable of mind controlling millions of voters. They'll explain that only women can have opinions on abortion. Then they'll tell you that actually, well, men and women are the same thing, and on and on and on. Hypocrisy isn't really the right word for this kind of behavior. That doesn't quite capture it. This is zealotry. This is people who are willing to suspend reality along with their own common sense because they believe it will benefit them politically. So in order to remain a viable political movement, and in order to appeal to sane voters who remain a slim majority in this country, conservatives have to reject this mode of thought or lack thereof. We cannot blindly follow commands that contradict everything we've been told and everything we've observed for many years. Practically and morally and politically, it's wrong. And yet, when it comes to Epstein, it has been people on the right engaging in this kind of behavior. So let's talk about Epstein and what this administration has been saying about him and what they're saying now and what kind of sense we can make of all of this. So let's go back to begin with, to February 21st, which you've probably seen this clip replayed, but we'll play it again, in which the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, was asked directly about Epstein's client list. Watch.
Yeah, I saw your appearance at CPAC with Ben and with Ted Cruz. And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
It's sitting on her desk right now. What's sitting on her desk? Well, the Epstein client list. She says that specifically. She does not say that this list might be out there somewhere. She doesn't say that she's still looking for the list. She doesn't say that she sent Indiana Jones out on a mission to find the list deep in a cave in the jungle somewhere. No, she says it is sitting on her desk at that present moment in February of this year. Now, less than a week later, on February 26th, Bondi was back on Fox, and this time she was there to explain that she was about to release flight logs and other information about Epstein. She also said that Epstein had hundreds of victims that the DOJ has been slow to release information only because it wants to protect the privacy of those victims.
A lot of people are wondering, because you said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk, is when can we see them and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have, well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
Yeah. What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. But it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay. Well, we'll
along
look
with
for
his
that.
co-defendant.
Absolutely. And he had help. That's for
He
sure.
sure did.
So tomorrow, she says, you're going to see a lot of names tomorrow, along with lots of other information. But, that was back in February, and tomorrow has long since come and gone from the perspective of February. So what happened with all those names that she explicitly on camera promised? Well, nothing. There were no names released. There had never been any names released related to Jeffrey Epstein, except Ghislaine Maxwell. Instead, several influencers, as you may recall, were invited to the White House and handed large binders entitled The Epstein Files Phase 1. And they had reporters ready outside, ready to take pictures of the influencers triumphantly emerging from the White House, holding the binders as they exited. It was obviously a coordinated stunt. They made a big show of releasing the files, or at least phase 1 of the files. But within a few hours, it became clear that the binders didn't contain any new information at all. Everything in the binders had been published before. So they didn't actually release anything. And this development posed an obvious problem for Pam Bondi's credibility. She had not told Jesse Waters that the DOJ was about to release old information that everyone already had access to. She had not promised to repackage previously released documents in a fancy new binder. I didn't hear that part of her Jesse Waters interview. Did you? Did you hear her say, well, Jesse, we actually don't have any new information about Epstein, but what we do have are some fun new binders. No, instead she said that she had breaking news that would make people sick. And she specifically told John Roberts and the audience at CPAC that the information related to the names of Epstein's clients. But none of that materialized. So instead, on February 28th, Bondi sent a letter to the FBI Director Kash Patel. Put that up on the screen there. And essentially, Bondi claimed that the FBI had thousands more documents in its possession. She demanded the FBI turn over those documents. And then in early March, the head of the FBI's New York field office was forced to resign after Bondi accused him of withholding the documents. But around the same time, she said that the FBI had finally produced the documents. And here's what she told Sean Hannity on March 3rd, quote, I gave the FBI a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source has told me where the documents were being kept, Southern District of New York. So we got them all by Friday at 8 a.m. Thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Director Patel is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all those documents, close quote. For the next several weeks, Bondi would repeat variations of this statement. She would claim over and over again that the DOJ had received truckloads of new documents. She also said the DOJ possessed, quote, tens of thousands of videos involving Epstein, videos that were never referenced in any of the previous Epstein cases. At a minimum, after all of this, you would expect some form of accounting from the Attorney General and the DOJ about what exactly is contained within these truckloads of documents. And given that tens of thousands of videos are involved, and Epstein was clearly involved in sex trafficking, which is why he was in prison in the first place, presumably a lot of people are implicated in these videos. A lot of other people, aside from Epstein himself. It's especially true since Bondi was explicitly asked about a client list and stated directly that the list existed and she had it in her possession. But instead of any explanation whatsoever, instead of any form of transparency to make sense of all of this, we instead got a memo from the DOJ and the FBI explaining that, this was last week, explaining that after reviewing all the new information, there actually was no new information. There was no client list. No one else is implicated. Epstein did kill himself, and there's nothing else to report on the subject. That's it. It's over. And then we were treated to this performance in the White House. Watch.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
There's simply no getting around the massive crater-like hole that the administration dug for itself here. Let's assume that everything Pam Bondi says in that clip is true, which I don't believe it is. She still hasn't explained why the DOJ released phase 1 of the Epstein files, implying that there are more coming. Phase 1 means there's a phase 2, at least. And keep in mind, that was before she allegedly discovered that the FBI was hiding truckloads of additional documents. They had already contemplated a phase 2, and then they got a truckload of more documents. And instead of getting a phase 2, we're told that, oh no, phase 1 was it. So what's going on here? What's in those phase 2 documents that we were promised? And more to the point, how exactly is it remotely plausible that Jeffrey Epstein could have possessed tens of thousands of explicit videos without implicating a single other individual? Now, here's what the DOJ could do right now. They could unseal all of the relevant search warrants and affidavits for the raids on Epstein's properties. They could unseal and unredact all of Epstein's financial disclosures. They could also explain document by document what was in those truckloads of files they just recovered at the FBI. Even if it's irrelevant, they can explain why it's irrelevant. They could at least do that to begin with, and instead they're not doing any of it. They're just telling us to shut up, essentially. And it's not a particularly convincing effort. You know, at the end of that clip, Bondi didn't even respond when she was asked whether Epstein was an intelligence asset. She said that she would have to get back to us on that. This has been the go-to response to bury this question in Washington for many years. It's been the go-to response about everything Epstein related. Oh, we'll get back to you on that. We'll let you know. Rather than say yes or no, they evade in the most suspicious and incriminating way possible. And back during the first Trump administration, Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney who handled the Epstein case, basically did the same thing. Instead of addressing the question directly, he stalled, which of course basically confirms that indeed it is true that, as the Daily Beast first reported, Epstein, quote, belonged to intelligence. Watch.
One more question.
Richard Lardner from the Associated Press. Mr. Secretary, were you ever made aware at any point in your handling of this case if Mr. Epstein was an intelligence asset of some sort?
So there has been reporting to that effect, and let me say there's been reporting to a lot of effects in this case, not just now but over the years, and again, I would hesitate to take this reporting as fact. This was a case that was brought by our office. It was brought based on the facts. And I look at that reporting and others. I can't address it directly because of our guidelines. But I can tell you that a lot of reporting is just going down rabbit holes. A few more questions.
So, look, there are, I'm afraid, only two possible scenarios to make sense of all of this. And as a Trump supporter myself and a big fan of much of what this president has done so far this term, I don't relish having to say this, but I will always shoot you straight and tell you exactly what I think. So here are the two and only two options. Okay. And unfortunately, there just is no option that allows you to just, vindicate the Trump administration entirely and say, well, there's no funny business going on here. That option doesn't exist right now. So option one is that the Trump administration played into the Epstein, quote unquote, conspiracy theories, knowing they were false until the moment when it no longer benefited them to do so. They were drumming up Epstein conspiracies before the election. And then once they took power, they didn't know what to do. So they lied about having possession of a client list, knowing they actually didn't have possession of it, strung everybody along for a while until they finally dropped the pretense. That's one option. Okay. That's one theory of the case. The second is that the quote unquote conspiracy theories are true. And now this administration is, for one reason or another, participating in the cover-up. There is no door number 3 here because the Attorney General is on the record saying, I have the client list. So those are the only two ways to make sense of that. Those are the two possibilities. Again, I don't enjoy it. It doesn't make me happy. I don't relish this. It's just the way it is. And it's not a good situation either way. And either way, Pam Bondi needs to go at a minimum. She either lied and said she had the client list on her desk when she didn't, or she's lying now and saying she doesn't have the list when she does. Again, there's no third option. She's lying either way. You can't get around it. And we can't have an attorney general who lies to us about something as important as this. Now, personally, I don't know the full truth about Epstein, and now I seriously doubt that any of us will ever know. But I do certainly believe that he was a global sex trafficker with high-profile clientele. I mean, that was pretty much unanimously agreed upon until 10 seconds ago by everybody. It's also the reason he went to prison. It's why Maxwell is currently in prison. I also don't for a second believe that he killed himself. And an apparently edited surveillance video from outside of the prison cell is not nearly enough to convince me otherwise. It shouldn't be enough to convince anyone of anything. Okay, they put a video out that is not evidence of anything. Now, at the moment, if we're going to get any transparency, it's probably not coming from Pam Bondi's DOJ. Instead, it's likely to come from Epstein's closest associate, convicted child sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. Late last night, the Daily Mail reported, quote, Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, is ready to reveal truth of the pedophile client list, says insiders. Ghislaine Maxwell is willing to speak in front of Congress about the Epstein files. Now, a source said, despite the rumors, Ghislaine Maxwell was never offered any kind of plea deal. She would be more than happy to sit before Congress and tell her story. No one from the government has ever asked her to share what she knows. She remains the only person to be jailed in connection to Epstein, and she would welcome the chance to tell the American public the truth, close quote. Now, of course, we have no idea what information, if any, this sociopath, this evil woman will ultimately reveal. But the fact remains that, especially after the humiliating display by Bondi and the DOJ we've all just witnessed, it's probably worth listening to Maxwell's testimony. If a client list exists at this point, she's the most likely person to tell us. Now, yes, it's an indictment of Pam Bondi and the DOJ that we see any reason to listen to a ghoul like this, but that's where we are. Millions of Americans are not satisfied with what we've been told. And we shouldn't be, because it's been contradictory and insulting to our intelligence every step of the way. So now we're looking elsewhere. This is what happens when people are deceived and strung along for years, only to be told that they're not entitled to any kind of transparency whatsoever. People are not just going to move on with their lives, no matter how badly you want them to. And there's a reason for that. And I want to make this very clear to those on the right, including the president himself, who are telling us to just drop the subject and move on. We can't drop it. We can't move on, because what we want is justice. We have a deep desire for justice. And we can see how the corrupt and the powerful are never held accountable. We can look at our cities and see violent criminals running rampant in the streets, also not held accountable. We want these evildoers to be punished. We want the innocent to be defended. We want justice. It's one of the most basic and most honorable of all human desires. We want to see that justice is done. We want to know who else was in those awful videos that Pam Bondi told us about. And we want those people to be dragged in front of us, weeping and begging for mercy. We want them exposed and humiliated and shamed and punished in the harshest and most painful way, because that's justice. And we're not going to drop the subject until we get it. So unseal everything, including the search warrants and the financial disclosures. Tell us what exactly was in those truckloads of documents that you recovered in New York. Show us the phase 2 Epstein files that you told us about just a few months ago. In other words, don't give us any more excuses from bureaucrats on Fox News. Don't give us any more stonewalling and doublespeak. We've seen more than enough of that in this case and so many others. Instead, for a change, give us something we're not used to seeing from the federal government and the DOJ. Give us justice. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.